After a grueling day, I was looking forward to crashing at my hotel when my phone rang. My boss, demanding and impatient, insisted I be back at the office by 8 a.m., groaning. I had to book a flight, throw my stuff together, and head to the airport. It was too late to call my wife without waking the kids, so I directed the taxi to drop me off at home first. Sneaking in, I noticed the house was dark except for our bedroom light. Voices drifted down the hallway, my wife and another man. My heart sank. Realizing my wife was cheating, I felt a surge of anger and nausea. Remembering my grandfather's advice to stay composed, I forced myself to breathe deeply. I inherited his volatile temper, and he always warned me it could ruin my life if I didn't control it. I decided to gather evidence instead of reacting impulsively. I used my new smartphone, equipped with a high-resolution camera and microphone, and a modified flash drive to prevent battery drain. Hiding in the shadows, I recorded the scene. Witnessing my wife's infidelity was soul-crushing. I decided right then to get a DNA test for the kids. As I recorded, I overheard something that pushed me over the edge. I burst into the room, fought the man, and threw him out. My wife Lisa cowered in a corner, terrified. "Get over here," I ordered, my voice trembling with fury. It felt like an out-of-body experience as my rage took over. This had only happened a few times in my life. "Now," I repeated. She crawled to the corner of the bed near me. "I'm so sorry, Rick. I'm so sorry," she pleaded. "Shut up," I growled, the anger consuming me. "Do you regret those times with Peter, too?" I demanded, seeking more of her betrayal. Lisa shuddered. How long had she been doing this, and with how many? "Please don't hurt me. I'm so sorry," she begged. "You've destroyed this house, this bedroom, our family," I declared, letting my fury pour out. She looked terrified, her eyes wide and her face pale. The anger within me felt almost alive, like a separate entity. "You will pack your things and be gone by noon. Take all the bedroom furniture, especially this bed. Leave my belongings neatly on the floor, understand?" I commanded. "How am I supposed to do all that?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I don't care. Maybe ask your brothers for help. By noon," I roared. "Yes, by noon, I understand," she whispered in defeat. Lisa shook and covered her head. The anger drove me to grab my bags and head to the car. I noticed Peter had vanished. Tossing my bags into the trunk, I got into the driver's seat. Looking in the mirror, I saw my nose was broken, ruining my appearance. I drove to the hospital. The doctors found I had a broken nose, 2 cracked ribs, a possible concussion, and several bruises and cuts. They wanted to admit me, but I refused, since I had to be at work in 2 hours. The police were called, and I told them I was attacked but couldn't remember much. I insisted I was seriously injured and the other party was fine since I didn't see Peter in the emergency room. They tested me, and I was clean. As a local and an employee of a major company, they let me go. One officer's sister worked at my company. I explained I was urgently needed back at work. Given the economy, they didn't want to harm a big employer without cause. They trusted me and let me go. At work, I headed to my boss's office. Melissa Campbell, the VP, had a full bathroom there. I showered and went to bed, still not feeling any pain. I arrived at the office and saw John's car. As our best troubleshooter, he was underpaid and undervalued. I wanted to change that, but it meant dealing with my older brothers who co-owned the company. John wasn't at his desk. I hoped he made coffee and went to my office, finding his luggage and him asleep on my couch. I admired his looks. He's one of the most handsome men I know, unlike me, prematurely graying and looking older than my age. John is oblivious to his charm. I approached the sofa and gasped. His face was bruised purple and black, with a metal splint on his nose. I touched his shoulder and his eyes opened, initially scary but then gentle as usual. "John, what happened to you?" I asked. "Let's just say I came home to surprise my wife, but she surprised me more. Know any good divorce lawyers?" John replied. "Yes, Sarah Jacobs. She was my college roommate and owes me a favor," Melissa called Sarah. "Morning, Sarah. I need your help for a friend who needs a divorce lawyer. Can you see him this morning? Thanks. See you soon." Turning to John, she said, "She'll make time for you. Now, what happened?" "Melissa, we have a lot of work today. How about you sit with me while I talk to Sarah, so I don't have to repeat myself?" John suggested. Okay, John, but I want the full story, Melissa agreed. John was the best assistant I could hope for, making this job bearable. Melissa and I worked for an hour, fixing her brother's mess. The company would be twice as successful without them. Sarah arrived, and I told my story, omitting details about the anger. I claimed I blacked out with rage and showed them the video. Peter asked Lisa, "Am I more important than your children?" Lisa replied, "I'm yours. I don't care about them." Sarah and Melissa were shocked. I growled, "Sarah, I want full custody of my kids, even if it means sacrificing our assets." "I don't want to pay child support. My kids are with her parents, and I need to get them," I told Melissa. "Rick, I'll try my best, but full custody is tough even with this evidence." "Your wife might claim she spoke in the heat of the moment. Ill-draft preliminary documents. Give my card to your wife and have her lawyer contact me. Stay calm and avoid making things worse. Understand?" Melissa's tone was firm. "I'm sorry, Melissa. I lost my cool. I'll stay calm. Thanks for taking my case," I replied. Olivia and Melissa exchanged a few words privately before Melissa left. We had been working together for a couple of hours when a sudden wave of anxiety hit me. The thought of Lisa still at the house made my blood boil. I knew I needed to get home before things escalated further. "Olivia, I have a personal issue to handle. It should only take an hour or so. Can I leave? I'll be back as soon as possible," I requested. "Of course, Rick. You've been a great help. Just hurry back," Olivia responded. I rushed to my car, fearing my temper might flare again. When I arrived home, I saw a rental truck and Lisa's brothers moving furniture. 2 police cars were parked outside, and 3 officers stood by. I grabbed my laptop and approached them. "I have a recording from last night. May I show it to you?" I asked. "Are you Rick Evans, Lisa's husband?" The police sergeant asked, her voice stern. "Yes, I am. I'll answer all your questions, but please watch this recording first," I pleaded. "All right, Mr. Evans, well, watch it. Stay where you are," she instructed. "You have my word, Sergeant," I assured her. I started the recording, turning up the volume. Neighbors began to gather, watching intently. When Lisa's voice declared, "I don't give a damn about them," she dropped the box she was carrying. We all noticed a bag of white powder spilling out. "Sergeant, did you see that?" I pointed out. She saw it too and quickly called for backup while rushing toward Lisa. I zoomed in on the video, highlighting a small mirror with powder streaks on the bedside table. I showed this to an officer who called the sergeant over. She immediately handcuffed Lisa, who began to sob uncontrollably. Her brothers stood in shock as the sergeant ordered them to finish moving her things while 2 officers took Lisa away. "Sergeant, what just happened?" I asked, bewildered. "Your wife has been arrested for possession of illegal substances. Well, test the powder to confirm," she explained. "What about my kids? When can I see them?" I asked, panic rising. "Where are they?" she asked, concerned. "At my in-laws, about 5 miles from here," I replied. "These are your children. Your wife is in custody. If I were you, I'd go get them," she advised. "I need to pick them up, but I don't want an ugly scene in front of them," I admitted, worried. The sergeant's stern look softened. "I'll stay until they finish here and then follow you to your in-laws. There won't be any trouble, but I need a full statement about your injuries." "All right, I came home to find my wife with Peter Johnson. I recorded everything. When my wife said something awful about our kids, I blacked out. The next thing I remember is yelling at her to leave by noon. I went to the hospital after that. I don't know how I got hurt or if I injured Peter," I explained, handing her my hospital documents. She glanced through the papers and whistled. "Does anything hurt?" she asked. "Not right now, but I'm sure the pain will kick in soon. By the way, you have striking eyes," I added, feeling lightheaded as I leaned against her patrol car. "Maybe I should take you back to the hospital," she suggested. "I'm just exhausted. I've only had 2 hours of sleep. I need to get my kids and head back to work. We have a daycare there, so it'll be fine," I reassured her. "Okay, but I'll follow you to your in-laws," she insisted, "whatever you say." My soon-to-be ex-brothers-in-law were finishing up. I locked the house and got into the patrol car. On the drive, the sergeant offered advice. "If I were you, I'd get temporary custody and a restraining order against your wife. While she's in custody, you have the advantage. Use this time wisely, she advised. I will, I said. I called Melissa, explained the situation, and relayed the sergeant's advice. Melissa assured me she would handle everything by 11 o'clock tomorrow. I started calling the sergeant by her first name, Kelly, and even flirted a bit. She gave me curious but not unfriendly looks. Aren't you a bit too cheerful for someone in your situation? She asked. I'm about to pick up my kids. I thought I wouldn't see them for weeks. I have great people supporting me. Why let my wife's betrayal ruin more than it already has? My marriage is over, but I'm not letting that stop me from enjoying life and my kids. In other words, I'm going to stop and smell the roses, Kelly, I said, winking at her. I can't tell if you're clever, crazy, or just in need of sleep, she remarked with a half-smile. At my in-laws, there was no confrontation. Kelly instructed them to hand over the kids, and we left. They never liked me and probably knew about Lisa's affair. My kids were ecstatic to see me and thrilled to ride in a police car. Emma, my oldest at 5, wanted to hear the siren. Ben, my youngest at 3, wanted to sit on Kelly's lap. Introducing her as Aunt Kelly drew a mix of amusement and disapproval from her. Aunt Kelly, are you coming to our house? Emma asked. I can't, sweetie. I have to work, Kelly replied. What shifts do you work, Kelly? I asked. I work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, she answered, eyeing me suspiciously. You should join us for dinner tomorrow night at 6:30. Emma can show Aunt Kelly her doll collection, I suggested. That sounds awesome, Daddy, Emma exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. Rick, I can't just, Kelly began, looking hesitant. You don't want to disappoint Emma, do you? Not now, I interjected, giving her a pleading look. All right, what do you want for dinner, Emma? Kelly asked, smiling down at my daughter. Chicken. Can we have chicken? Emma decided eagerly. Okay, chicken it is. For the kids' sake, I'll do it. Should I bring anything? Kelly asked, relenting. What should Aunt Kelly bring? I asked Emma, grinning. Ice cream! Emma shouted excitedly, jumping up and down. Okay, I'll bring ice cream, Kelly agreed with a chuckle. Thank you, Aunt Kelly, Emma said, hugging her leg. Thank you, Ben added softly from behind his sister. Goodbye, Kelly, I said as she waved and drove off. Kelly's thoughts raced as she drove away. What am I doing? Rick could be in serious trouble if Peter presses charges. I can't believe I was assigned to his case. I've always had a bit of a crush on Rick Evans. Seeing him with his kids at the park 2 years ago, he was so captivating. Every Sunday, more women showed up at the park just to watch him. We even chatted a few times. Last weekend, he did the sweetest thing, and I took pictures of the park, making sure to include him. Now I was called to arrest him. Thank God things turned out differently. He said I had the most beautiful eyes and flirted with me. It's probably because he hasn't been with anyone for a long time. I must be one of the plainest women around. I have the shape of a brick and the face of a bulldog, and yet he flirted with me. It's almost good his face is bruised. I don't know if I could sit across from him with his usual gorgeous face. Calm down, Kelly. His kids called me Aunt Kelly. Do your job, Kelly. You need to visit Peter Johnson and get his statement. After dropping my kids off at daycare, I hurried to see Olivia. My behavior was off, probably due to lack of sleep or the stress, but I felt strangely focused and even flirted with Kelly. I should be grieving my marriage, but it felt like it ended a long time ago. Something was numbing the pain, and I hoped it lasted. Olivia, I think I'll be exhausted tomorrow. Can I take the day off? Of course, Rick. I might call you, but you can stay home. I'm sorry about your situation. Good night. Good night, Olivia. My broken ribs worried me the most since they could limit my movement, and I needed to care for my kids. We took a taxi home, and I ordered pizza for dinner. Emma and Ben asked about their mom. I explained that Mom and Dad had a big fight, but we both still loved them very much. Because of the fight, Mom would stay at their grandparents' house for a while. It's okay, Daddy, as long as you stay with us. We are tired of staying at Grandma and Grandpa's house. Both kids hugged me tightly. I realized they had spent many nights with their grandparents, likely when Lisa was out cheating. The rage inside me stirred. That night, I found an emergency nanny service and arranged for someone to come at 7 a.m. I hid the key under the doormat, anticipating that my lack of sleep and pain might make it hard to get up. I transferred most of our savings from joint accounts to my own checking account and canceled our joint credit cards. I considered emptying our safe deposit box since I had the only key, but decided to think it over. We all slept in the guest bedroom's double bed, so I wouldn't have to run down the hall if the kids woke up. The next morning, Ben and Emma woke me up. "Dad, someone is ringing at the door," Emma said, shaking me awake. Just then my phone rang. "Mr. Evans, this is Gloria from the nanny service. Are you home?" "Yes, Gloria. Thanks for coming. I'm a bit exhausted. I put the key under the doormat. Please come in and go upstairs." "Of course. I'll come now." I heard the front door open and footsteps. The woman who entered looked to be in her late 50s. I explained the situation. She needed to get Emma ready and take her to daycare, then look after Ben for the rest of the day. She quickly got to work and was very warm towards the children. I rested for the day. A messenger from Melissa's office delivered the temporary custody order and restraining order. Melissa called to say that my wife had been served with divorce papers while she was in jail. She expected Lisa to be released that evening. With the controlled substance charge and the evidence, I now had a strong chance of getting full custody. While Gloria went to pick up Emma from daycare, I stopped by the bank, bought a new safe deposit box, and moved most of the contents from the old one to the new one. I only left Lisa's things in the old box. At the bank across the street, I opened a new checking and savings account in my name only. I then wrote a check from my old personal checking account to my new bank savings account. Once the divorce is settled, I wouldn't mind Lisa getting half, but now I didn't want her wasting money on drugs or bail. I felt surprisingly good, although the pain had started to set in. It wasn't as bad as I feared. My nose hurt the most. I decided to buy some chicken from the grocery store and cook it tonight. Gloria left at 5 o'clock, and to be safe, I asked her to come again tomorrow. Kelly arrived quickly. We had a delightful dinner. Emma asked to see Kelly's weapon, and Kelly carefully explained how dangerous real weapons were. I must have looked terrible because Kelly kept asking about my condition. I decided to milk it for all the attention I could get. She agreed to sit with us and watch a children's movie. Then I pretended to feel dizzy and asked her to sit with me during another movie. I told Kelly I'd feel more at ease if she stayed while I was feeling so dizzy, just in case. Sweat was dripping off me, and I wondered, what even is sweat? During the second movie, Kelly shared how she interrogated Peter Johnson. She made me promise not to tell anyone what she said. She found Peter holed up in a nearby hotel, absolutely terrified of me. He claimed I ambushed him in the bathroom and attacked without any warning. Kelly then showed him the footage, highlighting the part where he apparently flung himself off the bed towards me and the camera. She listed all my injuries and compared them to his minor cuts and bruises. She told him she could press charges against me but warned him that I might retaliate, and if I did, he could end up serving time. Peter decided not to press charges. I told her that since I didn't remember much, I wouldn't press charges either, but I made a mental note to send Peter's wife a copy of the footage. Kelly left around 11 p.m., and I went back to bed with the kids. As time passed, I refused all communication with Lisa, directing her to speak only with my lawyer. My ribs healed in about 3 weeks, but my nose still hurt. I redecorated my bedroom with new paint, crown molding, and curtains. Finally, I bought a bedroom set I liked, a massive 4-poster bed with matching furniture, all made of heavy dark wood. It felt good to make the space my own. I often tricked Kelly into spending evenings at my place. Though I hadn't made a move on her yet, I was planning to once my nose healed. Damn, it still hurt. Work was going well, and although I had to spend some nights away, I hired Gloria to cover those times. Olivia did her best to reduce my travel. Finally, the doctor cleared me, saying my nose was fine. I pretended to feel dizzy again, convincing Kelly to stay late. During the movie, I fetched us each a bowl of ice cream. Instead of sitting in my chair, I joined her on the sofa, sitting close. We ate in silence, and as the movie played, I inched closer. "What are you doing today?" she asked, noticing my proximity. "The doctor said my nose is completely healed. I don't have to worry about it anymore. That's why I'm making a move now." "Is that clear enough?" I replied. "Why would you want to kiss me? I'm ugly. Absolutely ugly," she protested. I put a finger to her lips. "You're a beautiful, healthy woman my age with wonderful eyes, a lovely voice, and a fantastic personality. You take good care of yourself and stay in shape. I like you. Can we kiss now?" I asked. She started to object, but I kissed her. That night was amazing, and we never finished the movie. Unfortunately, the night ended as usual, but she agreed to come over the next day. I couldn't believe it. The most attractive guy in town wanted to see me again. I'd only kissed one other guy, who was old, ugly, and drunk. Things were going well with Kelly. I mentioned that Gloria sometimes took the kids overnight and then asked Kelly if she was free on Saturday evening. She said yes and wanted to show me her apartment. Kelly greeted me at the door in a dark blouse and black trousers. "Why do women always wear dark colors? What's wrong with bright, happy colors?" I asked, handing her a bouquet of long-stemmed roses and a box of chocolates. She blushed, her eyes lighting up. I kissed her. It had been almost 2 months since I'd been intimate, and I had an idea. "What did you cook for dinner?" I inquired. "Lasagna. It's in the oven," she answered. "Can you turn it off?" I asked. "Yes, but—" "Please do," I interrupted. "Sorry, Kelly, but I'm just too impatient," I said. We made love, and afterward I lay next to her, kissing her tenderly. She kissed me back, closed her eyes, and fell asleep. The lasagna was almost ruined, but still edible. I devoured 2 large pieces along with garlic bread to regain my strength. She ate almost 2 pieces. Then it hit me. I'm sitting here with a gorgeous, undressed woman in my kitchen. What a happy day. The intimacy was better than I'd hoped for. After eating and brushing our teeth, we cuddled on the couch and watched TV. I felt proud. Ugly old Kelly Hoover had driven a gorgeous guy crazy. The phone rang non-stop for 15 minutes. It was my neighbor and friend Beth screaming in my ear. "Kelly, are you okay? We're all outside your door ready to break it down, but we decided to wait since you're a cop," Beth said. "Honey, everything is fine," I pressed against Rick's chest. "I have a friend visiting. So sorry if we disturbed you tonight," I replied. "Is it that gorgeous guy from yesterday?" she asked. "Yes, indeed it is." Rick leaned over and kissed me as we spoke. Applause, cheers, and whistles echoed through the hallway. Over time, I had grown close to many of my single women neighbors. As a police officer, I was usually the one maintaining peace. But tonight, I was the one causing a stir. We had shared an unforgettable night, and when I woke up, Rick had already showered, dressed, and looking sharp as ever. He apologized, explaining he needed to pick up his kids. With a sleepy smile, I told him I understood. He kissed me, promising to call, and I believed him. Exhausted, I trusted him to lock the door and drifted back to sleep. The night with Kelly had been extraordinary. As I stepped outside, making sure everything was in order and locking the door, I was suddenly surrounded by flashes of light. 5 women, some with cameras, stood there clapping and cheering. Feeling a bit self-conscious, I bowed and thanked them, then walked down the hallway humming a nostalgic tune my grandfather had taught me, hearing them sigh behind me. The next few months were mostly serene. Due to my responsibilities with Emma and Ben, I didn't spend many nights with Kelly, but the ones we did share were memorable. However, 2 significant issues troubled our relationship. The most challenging was her emotional withdrawal. We'd make progress, then she'd build up walls, retreating into herself. Our physical connection was strong, but the emotional intimacy was lacking. Another issue was her constant preference for dark clothing. She always wore black or dark gray, sometimes a white blouse, which felt equally somber. I wanted to tell her, wear bright colors. Stop looking like you're at a funeral. My divorce proceedings were moving along and we had a court date set. Melissa proposed a settlement, but Lisa's side rejected it, even though Melissa warned them they were fortunate to get such an offer. From Melissa, I learned that Lisa's infidelity began about 6 months before I caught her with Peter. My former friend Dan had invited her to a party while I was away, got her drunk, and introduced her to illegal substances, leading to a 2-month affair filled with wild escapades. Fearing I'd discover her infidelity, Dan passed Lisa off to Peter, and the cheating continued until I caught her. Lisa was convicted for illegal substance use and entered rehab, still undergoing therapy. She harbored a delusional belief that I would forgive her or agree to joint custody. To sway me, she shared her story with Melissa and offered to have her therapist speak openly with me. Despite our rocky relationship, she willingly slept with Dan and Peter. She didn't use substances when I was home, indicating she knew she needed help but chose not to seek it. Instead, she neglected me and our children, often leaving them with her parents when I was away. My grandparents had fought tirelessly to get me out of foster care after my parents died, improving their health and financial situation to gain custody. In stark contrast, my wife handed our children over to her parents to carry on her affairs. Her parents never liked me or our children, thinking I was too gentle and not manly enough for their daughter. They were harsh with our kids, trying to toughen them up, believing sensitivity equated to weakness. They'll never see my children again, and my ungrateful relatives will no longer benefit from my support. The day of the divorce finally arrived. In court, we presented our evidence to the judge, who watched the video and examined both of us. She seemed to find Lisa unfit and granted the divorce under Melissa's original terms. This upset Melissa, but I was satisfied. My ex-wife received half of our assets and retirement accounts, but not my company pension. I had to pay her half the equity in our house. I got full custody of the children, while Lisa received 2 4-hour supervised visits per month. Neither of us paid child support. I also had to keep her on my health insurance for 5 years unless she remarried. I deducted the loans I gave to her family from her half of the assets, leaving her with about $350,000 excluding retirement accounts. She also had to pay her own lawyer and her share of legal fees. Melissa didn't charge me for her services, saying she owed Olivia for all the good things she'd done for her, and knew I had supported Olivia for years. Peter left the state, and his wife filed for divorce. Dan, my former friend, moved across town and changed offices. When he sees me, he avoids me. Shortly after the divorce, Kelly told me she wanted to remain friends, but didn't see a romantic future. I was saddened, but noticed she always held back emotionally. A couple of weeks later, she told me she met a local FBI agent. I wished her well, but we still met for lunches and occasional dinners. About a month after Kelly and I went our separate ways, I was putting the kids to bed when I heard strange noises at the front door, whimpering and scratching. Thinking it was a stray dog, I opened the door to find Lisa leaning against the screen door, crying and scratching it with one hand. She had no coat or shoes, and it was around 1 a.m. I carefully opened the screen door and carried her inside. She was unresponsive, and I hoped it wasn't due to drugs. Instead of calling the police, I decided she needed warmth. I ran a hot bath, undressed her, and placed her in it, adjusting the water to her preferred temperature. She used to love soaking in the bath for hours, so I set it up as she liked. I even set up the swing-arm LCD TV with one of her old DVDs, I Love Lucy, which she used to watch when she was feeling down. I whipped up a strawberry smoothie for Lisa and handed her a bottle of water. When I returned, I insisted she drink. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days, so I prepared a grilled cheese sandwich and some chips. She devoured everything silently and soaked in the bath for almost 2 hours, probably afraid I'd kick her out. Eventually, I handed her one of my bathrobes and told her to get dressed. Then I carried her to the guest bedroom, set her on the bed, set up some old DVDs, and gave her another bottle of water. "We'll talk in the morning," I said, relieved it was the weekend. After taking her clothes to the laundromat and washing them, I fell asleep, still puzzled by her sudden return. In the morning, I decided to let the kids surprise their mother. At 9 o'clock, I took Emma and Ben to her room, telling them I had a special surprise. They were ecstatic to see their mother. Emma stood by the bed while Ben clambered up shouting, "Mommy, Mommy!" Lisa woke up to their cries, hugging them tightly as if she hadn't seen them in years, despite the recent supervised visits. They kissed, hugged, and laughed. It was a touching moment, but I couldn't forget her betrayal. Eventually, they calmed down, and Lisa offered to make them breakfast. They eagerly agreed, and she glanced at me for approval. I nodded, deciding to let her have some time with the kids. While the children watched TV and played, I sat down with Lisa at the kitchen table. "Lisa, you can't stay here indefinitely. I need to know what's going on," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Rick, my family never accepted you. They thought you were too gentle. If they had seen you that night with Peter, they would have been terrified. They constantly mocked us, assuming you were cheating during your business trips. I know it's not true, but I started to believe it. That night, Dan pulled me into a destructive lifestyle of pills and affairs, and I lost sight of being a good mother and wife. My therapist is helping me understand how I got here, but you probably don't care. At my parents' house, they used me, making me do all the heavy work and convincing me to lend them money. 2 days ago, I found out my father was writing checks from my account and gave my car to my brother without my knowledge. I feel like an idiot for trusting them and betraying you. We'll go to the bank first, then file a police report. You don't have to press charges, but it might encourage them to return your property," I suggested. "You listened to them and ruined your life, but you're still the mother of my children. Listen to me now, okay?" We got in the car and headed to the bank. Fortunately, Lisa found an old pair of garden shoes. Otherwise, she would have been barefoot. She couldn't remember losing her shoes, having simply run away from her parents' house. At the bank, we discovered her father had stolen nearly $100,000, leaving her with only $250,000. We then went to the police station and spoke with Detective Kelly. She was surprised to see me with Lisa, but after we explained the situation, she promised to investigate. Lisa's parents started calling me in a panic, but Lisa refused to talk to them. I had no problem being firm. All of Lisa's property was returned, including her car. They also had to repay $25,000 immediately and sign a loan document for the remaining $75,000 over 10 years at 12% interest, using their home as collateral. After that, Lisa wanted nothing more to do with her parents or brothers. "Rick, thank you for your help. I'm glad to see the mother of my children in a better place. I hurt you badly and still need therapy, but can I stay in the guest room to reconnect with my family?" Lisa asked. "I have an offer, but you might not want it. You caused me severe emotional trauma. If you stay, you must help around the house and take care of the children. I'll set strict rules to rebuild trust. Think carefully before accepting," I cautioned. Lisa flinched. I suggested she seriously consider it and discuss it with her therapist. "Rick, please believe me. I truly regret my past actions. Lisa, I can't trust you anymore. One more thing, if you accept, the house will be under video surveillance. This will be hard for you, so don't accept lightly." Lisa agreed, though her therapist advised against it. We decided she would continue therapy. I set up a separate room for her and established strict rules. She went back on birth control and bought clothes of my choosing. I paid her a salary for housework and childcare, which the kids appreciated. I reconnected with Lisa without emotional attachment and maintained strict limits. I confided in Olivia about my situation with Lisa. Olivia wasn't worried about Lisa but was concerned about me, fearing my chaotic life would prevent me from finding true love. I told her about a woman I was interested in who was currently unavailable and that I had a plan for the future. Olivia felt relieved that I wasn't trapping myself with Lisa. Despite my feelings for Rick, I saw him make some unwise decisions. However, he was more effective when he had a stable relationship. During the period between Kelly leaving and Lisa's return, Rick wasn't as competent as usual. He was still better than most, but not at his peak performance. I could feel the tension building in my eyes, a constant reminder of the turmoil inside me. Audrey had been one of the few bright spots in my life, but seeing her concern now was almost too much to bear. I knew she noticed the bruises and the stress etched on my face, and I hoped she wouldn't ask too many questions. After inheriting the company, Audrey, her brothers, and I each received 25% of the shares, with another 25% sold publicly. Over the years, Audrey had cleverly bought back shares, increasing her stake to over 35%, while her brothers owned less than 20%. My task was to secure another 16% of the vote to help her replace her older brother as CEO of Hammer Inc. The employees, aware of who truly drove the company's success, easily gave us their 7% vote. Winning over the female shareholders, who controlled more than half of the remaining shares, was my next challenge. Using my charm and persuasion, I managed to secure their votes as well. The transition was smooth, and Audrey's brother retired to the Caribbean. I was rewarded with substantial bonus checks and a promotion, although I couldn't become president. A deserving manager took that role instead. To celebrate, Audrey invited me to dinner at a Hilton restaurant known for its prime rib. As we sipped our wine, she looked at me and said, "Rick, we did it. You've been wonderful and a great help for many years." There was a strange tension between us, like I was standing on the edge of a precipice. "Besides the huge bonus check, I'd like you to accept the position of vice president. Audrey, you're doing a wonderful job running the company without interference. I know you'll be a huge success. As for the position, I'm very sorry, but I can't accept it." My stomach tightened as I saw the surprise on her face. "But Rick, why?" she asked, clearly puzzled. "As I mentioned before, there's a woman who interests me. Our company policies prevent me from pursuing her, so I'll have to quit." She must have thought I was interested in another Hammer employee. She didn't realize that I was talking about her. 2 weeks ago, anticipating my future romance, I stopped all physical closeness with Lisa. She pretended to be disappointed but was actually relieved. I also had a complete physical exam and was free of all illnesses, ready to start this new chapter in my life. Why is he telling me this? Audrey seemed to be asking herself. I couldn't let her go, not without trying. "Audrey, darling, would you like to dance?" I had suggested the Hilton for its prime rib and arranged everything so we could have a dance there. I had planned this. I slowly lifted her from the chair. She looked completely shocked. "You, Rick, I'm much older." "Shh, you're the one I want. Please dance with me." We danced, and I didn't want it to end. After 4 songs, the food on our table was cold. I looked at her kindly. "They actually have room service here, but we don't have a room. Please don't think badly of me, but I've been looking forward to this for some time." I showed her the room key card, then kissed her. I'd make her mine. We went to the elevator, then to the room, and made love. "Audrey, I love you. Audrey, I love you. Audrey, I love you." I confessed my love to her. I'd always had a crush on Audrey, but was too scared to admit it. I thought I was too battered and she was too perfect. Now I was telling her I loved her. She was magnificent, wonderful, kind, and smart. She was everything to me. On Monday, Audrey called an emergency board meeting with the president. She announced that I had resigned. They were shocked and alarmed. The board, composed mainly of women, considered meeting me the highlight of their visits. Audrey explained that I had been romantically involved with an employee and quit to pursue my love interest. Everyone appreciated my honesty and integrity, but agreed the company needed me, so the policy had to be changed immediately. I would be offered Audrey's old job. Mary, the new president, looked at her suspiciously. "Audrey, you didn't say who Rick is in love with. You two are very close. If he told anyone, it was you, so who is it?" The room full of my admirers turned and stared at Audrey. She answered quietly, "Me," and they all screamed, thrilled for her. For 3 months, Audrey and I made love whenever we could. My drive was high, and my stamina was endless, but I was determined to take care of her. Since catching Lisa cheating, I had become more passionate. Audrey needed to keep up. She was my world, and I wanted to take care of her. We were discussing marriage when the pregnancy test showed a positive result. Nervously, she told me she had lied about the pills. I was overjoyed and wanted to marry her. I was ecstatic. We had a small but elegant and expensive wedding at the Hilton with around 100 guests. Emma was the flower girl, Ben was the ring bearer, Melissa was Audrey's bridesmaid, and Kelly was my best friend. The judge from my divorce attended and joked about never wanting to see us officially again, smiling widely. Audrey bought the family estate from her brother when he retired, and my entire family, including Lisa, moved in after the wedding. We allowed Lisa to stay because we didn't want Emma and Ben to feel deprived of their mother. Lisa continued working. Lisa took on multiple roles in our home, acting as a housekeeper, nanny, and mother, all while receiving a substantial pay increase. She continued to wear the colorful outfits I preferred, and Audrey also switched to brighter colors, which made her feel more carefree. Despite Lisa's longing looks, I couldn't bring myself to believe she still loved me. 4 months into Audrey's pregnancy, she was struggling to keep up with everything, even before she started showing. The tension was back in my eyes, and I was not in great shape either. It seemed like I could snap at any moment. Audrey had a radical idea. She needed someone to help during her pregnancy and after childbirth, and she thought Lisa could fill that role. Lisa was enthusiastic about the idea, but Audrey needed to talk to me first. I felt awful, heartbroken that I couldn't control my desires. I felt like a failure as a husband, and for the first time, Audrey saw me cry. She cried with me, telling me she felt like a failure for not being able to care for me. I made her promise that she would still love me if I turned to Lisa, and that she would have control over my inner turmoil. In the 7th month of Audrey's pregnancy, Kelly came to us in tears. Over the past year, she had become a close friend. She collapsed into Audrey's arms. Someone had hurt this tough cop deeply. She didn't want to talk to me, but confided in Audrey. Her boyfriend had manipulated her, making her agree to his twisted desires. When she finally stood up to him, he retaliated by exposing her behavior to her superiors, ruining her professional reputation. Audrey knew exactly what to do. She called Melissa and provided the ex-boyfriend's details, instructing her on the necessary legal actions. As for Kelly, Audrey had been contemplating the creation of a corporate security department for her company. She decided to hire Kelly as its leader and tasked her with building it from the ground up. 2 problems solved in one go. Melissa swiftly sued Kelly's ex-boyfriend for everything he owned or would own for the next 20 years. He was unemployed within 6 weeks. Kelly excelled in her new job but was emotionally fragile at home. Audrey convinced her to move in with us. Kelly had a melancholic look whenever she saw me. Eventually, I asked her why she left me. She admitted she didn't feel worthy of me, which was nonsense. 8 months into Audrey's pregnancy, I hadn't experienced real love in 3 months. Sure, I had a physical relationship with Lisa, but it wasn't love, and I needed love. Audrey discussed this with Kelly, who was skeptical and worried it would harm our marriage. Audrey trusted me. She knew I was honest and didn't lie. If things got out of hand, she would tell me to stop, and I would. Simple as that. When Audrey talked to me about it, I was even more concerned than Kelly. It took a lot of persuasion, but in the end, she convinced me. Can you imagine a wife having to persuade her husband to sleep with someone else? I also worried that Audrey might want to sleep with someone else someday. She reassured me that would never happen, as I was exactly the man she needed. So Kelly joined our household. The change in her was incredible. Audrey encouraged her to change her wardrobe. She switched to bright colors and even wore a dress around the house. This made me happy, and when I was happy, everyone else was happy. God, I was a happy man. I thought I would be a lonely old man, but now I had a baby on the way, 2 stepchildren, a great wife, and maybe even a couple of sisters instead of those useless brothers. A year later, I was furious. My life was completely out of control. I loved it, but felt so guilty about it. Between Audrey and the inner turmoil, it seemed like I had little control over my personal life. The turmoil loved Audrey, but I needed someone to talk to get advice from, and to take back control. My mind was still in turmoil over the changes. My heart was opening up to Lisa again, and I was so afraid of it. I had difficulty getting outside help, so instead of talking to anyone, I decided to write it all down. The turmoil had a weakness. When I was with my kids, it left me alone, and I wasn't completely under its control. I planned to take advantage of this weakness. Another day, another dollar, I thought with annoyance. I must be the unluckiest psychiatrist in the country. I had 2 meetings today. The guy who called earlier seemed unstable. I hoped I could help him. It was time to get back to earning money. I opened my latest romance novel. My publisher wanted it finished in 2 weeks, and I had 30,000 words left. The phone rang, startling me. Janice, my secretary, said my 2 o'clock appointment was here. She seemed a bit flustered. I reluctantly got up from my office chair. The man who entered was carrying a child in his arms, but he was absolutely stunning. I wanted him to be on the cover of my next novel. I tried to put on a professional expression. Come on, Margaret, wipe the drool off your face and focus. Dr. Huff, I'm Rick Evans, and this is my daughter, Emma. I walked around my desk to coo at the baby. Not many people let me play with their children. He looked down at her with such love and tenderness. This man seemed perfect. Why could he be here? What can I do for you, Mr. Evans? Please call me Rick. I have an unusual problem. I don't know if I have a split personality or not. I wrote a diary, or a story of my life, if you will. It will probably take you some time to read it. Of course, charge me for this time, but please read this, and maybe we can meet at the same time next week. He looked at me with such despair. Hell, I'd give him my kidney if he asked. Of course, Rick, it will be fine. Same time next week? Over the course of a week, I read Rick's story. In fact, I read it at least 5 times and also looked at the photographs he included with the diary. Nowhere in this story did he describe the women in his life as less beautiful. I looked at one photo that was actually one of those family Christmas cards that people make that I would never have had the chance to take. The photograph showed me sitting with 3 women, 2 children, and an infant, likely Emma. We were arranged around a cozy living room sofa. To my left sat an elderly woman, plain-looking, holding Emma. On my right was a woman who was unattractive and clearly pregnant. Sitting on the floor near my feet was a woman in a bright maid uniform, also somewhat plain and pregnant, with 2 children beside her. I couldn't believe this picture existed. Every night, Dr. Huff would hang this photo on the mirror in her bedroom, comparing herself to these women. Hell, she was no less attractive than the woman to my right. How did they end up so lucky? Returning to Dr. Huff's office the following week with Emma, I felt a mix of anxiety and hope. Rick, you talk about the beast. I know you had a rough time in foster care. The beast likely emerged during those times, awakening when you experienced your final shock. But in all your descriptions, the beast never seemed to want to harm you. It appears to be more of a protector. I don't know if it's a hidden part of your personality or a real split, but I think you should stop demonizing it. Give it a different name. Respect it. I looked thoughtful. You're right. He was my protector, harsh but protective. What name would you suggest? How about Bob? It's a friendly name. Who ever heard of a monster named Bob? I closed my eyes for a moment, deep in thought. I think Bob likes his new name, I chuckled. Dr. Huff smiled warmly. I'm pretty sure Bob likes you too, Rick. Her face reddened slightly. Most of her patients wouldn't even look her in the eyes. They found her so repulsive. In fact, she didn't have many patients because of her appearance. They'd have one consultation with her and then find another therapist. I never avoided eye contact with her, and there was never a hint of disgust on my face. Rick, are you saying you have a new position? Yes. Audrey decided my skills as a troubleshooter would be wasted as vice president. I think she hated all those late nights. So I was promoted to board member and special assistant to both Audrey and the president. My work week is only 30 hours or less. I have to admit I like it. It gives me more time to spend with my family. Both Audrey and Mary, the company president, assure me I'm making a valuable contribution. The next week I was completely desperate. Audrey wants to bring another woman into our house because she's pregnant again, and Kelly and Lisa are due to give birth in a couple of months. She's afraid I won't be taken care of. This nonsense needs to stop. That's not how you do things in polite society in this country. Rick, I understand you're upset. I would like your permission to talk to Audrey. She loves you. I'm sure we can come to an understanding. I had a frightened expression on my face. Audrey is the best thing that could happen to me. You can talk to her. But please don't ruin everything for me. I'll do my best, Rick. Everything was completely out of control. Dr. Huff could lose her license over this, but something had to be done. She thought as she pulled up to my house. She knew I was out of town, giving her a chance to talk to Audrey about me. Audrey had already agreed to meet with her. They spoke for several hours, outlining my concerns. Audrey understood that they were breaking many societal norms, but she loved her life. If society didn't like it, they could just shut up. Audrey, I appreciate your attitude, but Rick is a very kind person. He thinks he's taking advantage of you all. He believes he's cheating on his marriage vows. We need to work on Rick to convince him that you're all genuinely happy with the situation. I think it would be better if he had frequent and even daily therapy with someone who was top of their class, Dr. Huff said quietly. A smirk appeared on Audrey's face. What exactly are you trying to say, Margaret? I can call you Margaret, can't I? Rick told me you're looking for a new woman. I'd like to apply for that job. She said the last part so quietly that she thought Audrey wouldn't hear, but her grin grew even wider. Next Christmas, the card read, Merry Christmas from the Evans family. There were 4 women in the picture with me, all beaming. 3 women held children, and 1 was pregnant. The 4th woman didn't have a child but was clearly expecting, and her smile was the biggest of them all. Audrey, honey, I asked, Judge Grant from our wedding has been appearing often lately. Are we in some trouble? Oh no, Rick, no problem, but you see, we're all pregnant again and we have to take care of you and Bob. So I talked to Bethany Grant. She's been interested in you for a long time.